Yo, what's up? Back at you with another video. NOTA recently did an interview on the G2G podcast where he went and said some things, which he said that he would never do himself.
White people came here. They need to assimilate to our culture, not the other way around. It's bad enough we speak their language with a proficiency that they cannot even master. But they still need to assimilate to our culture. They need to assimilate to Ubuntu. That's the only way in which we can coexist within this environment. Otherwise, we will slaughter all of them, drive them to the sea, literally. It might not be me. It might not be me calling for it.
I'm not a part of that thing. I'm just allowing him to talk.
No, I'm just saying, it might not be me. It might not be me calling for that. In fact, if white people are being driven to the sea, I'm least likely to be in the front lines driving them to the sea. Majority of black people, right, have been oppressed by white people and the white system. And if at any point they decide that they want to drive people to the sea, I will not discourage them.
But of course, you can tell that his intention there was to be provocative. He's able to spot the time that we're in. I'm sure he knows about the presidency's call for formations and individuals to act in a diplomatic kind of way as South Africa tries to keep its relations with the U.S. While all of that is happening, there's others who are agitating. There's a campaign going on our YouTube in South Africa where certain people have been paid to talk down black people, while right-wing podcasts, right-wing proponents, journalists, and right-wing zealots have all been coming out lifting white power. Rob Hersov, we saw him at that Biz News conference where he stood there and he said that we white people, the black people, cannot compete with our merit.
And as long as BEE exists, the ordinary black South African has some hope that their child could get a decent job at a company because of BEE. It was hard for me to get my head around that one. White South Africans excel at academics and competition. And what we need to therefore understand and acknowledge that competing with us on merit remains a scary prospect that most black South Africans won't support. It's hard to say that.
Like, really, is this 1883? Is this still what we're having to deal with? People telling us the merit of their skin. He said that we as white people, they cannot compete with us unless they have these 144 race laws. So there's real discourse happening. There's a real racist campaign. There's a system to monetize all of this while it is happening. And all of these things are playing together in one pot. And Chris Wyatt now is responding to NOTA, whom I believe is now caught inside NOTA's net. I've mentioned before that there's a desire by the USA to view us as these crazy cannibals, as these insane savages. They really desire to see us like that. And there are some who can see a market to give that response, to say, okay, so you want to see savagery? All right, for clicks, if I can get some views out of it, if I can get some controversy going, hell, I'll participate in it. Maybe it's for the clicks, maybe it's actually out of an actual anger from what we are observing the white people doing. So NOTA could genuinely be angry, he could genuinely be retaliating, or he could be gaming the system. And Chris Wyatt responding to him, making him known to Americans and picking out who he is, not really telling his audience that NOTA is an internetarian. He lives on the internet. It's his world. It's his market. He's an advanced black person who can understand the potential of this platform, this YouTube. And so with Chris Wyatt now sending him out there as one of the politicians, one of the influential people in South Africa whose words actually influence people to go out and kill and murder and commit genocide, it's a sign of the times that we are living in, really. I would really like to hold Colonel Chris Wyatt in high regard, etc. But the fact that you can be tricked into this and you are then also yourself, it seems, utilizing this to fan some fear and mistrust and hatred, this really just tells me that you are one of the people who are also gaming the system. You are spamming YouTube for monetization. This stuff pays. YouTube doesn't have eyes. It doesn't have policies against people creating scams and grifts. It doesn't have a problem with people creating a production company where a real life TV series will play out. The actors are actual people. The events are actual real life events, actual US and SA relations. And in the midst of these real life events, people can turn themselves into caricatures. They can become actors on the world stage. They can be the protagonists and the antagonists. And it's all entertaining for people, as you can see that there's views there. So I've come in here to listen to what Colonel Chris Wyatt has to say, but while noting that, hey man, listen, there's a game here that can be played. People can make money out of this. And if you've seen my content, how quickly I've been pushing to release videos, how I've been monitoring the metrics behind YouTube there. I'm still not monetized. I would like to see how much money Chris Wyatt is kind of getting, how much money estimate Ronaldo is kind of getting. I want to see from myself for 1,000 views, how much do I get? Multiplied by Ronaldo's 40,000 views. Then I'll be able to understand how deeply lucrative spamming and playing this game is. And so we're here. NOTA has performed another act, and the journalists with the cameras, the cinematographers are here to capture it all. And now each one is broadcasting. Ronaldo has put out his. The views have gone in. Now Colonel Chris Wyatt is also getting a share of the revenue.
Hello, folks. I really don't like covering this sort of thing, but this is important because of what's going on with South Africa, President Trump's executive order, and media.
You see, I doubt, Colonel Chris Wyatt, that you don't like covering this stuff. I think you understand that there's not much of the proof that you're looking for Donald Trump and what he says. And so you have to just pick these little fibers and say, hey, look, this is the genocidist hair. There's evidence that there's a genocide happening here.
And lying in South Africa, politicians lying about it's a safe environment for people in South Africa. It's not. For all
media lying in South Africa, and I really believe that you are a participant in the drama. I do not watch enough of your videos to be able to know how to the extent to how much you lie while you call others liars, but you are seriously playing into this drama. You are a director. This is your stage, and there's a play that you're calling your audience to come and watch. It's the NOTA show, and NOTA knows that he can do this.
All South Africans, things are bad. Crime is rampant, 23,000 murders per year. That's more than the United States by 50%, a country that's 1/6 of our size. It's a pretty frightening situation for South Africans, gender-based violence. It's a wonderful country with wonderful people, but the lawlessness is out of control, corruption, witnesses being murdered left and right, Babita Deokaran assassinated simply for doing her job. It's pretty frightening stuff, but white South Africans are really under siege despite the lies of the government. And a perfect example of this is that you have something called the South African Human Rights Commission, which is supposed to ensure the dignity of South Africans by taking people to court for saying things that are wildly inappropriate or racist or attacking the dignity of human beings. There's a gentleman named NOTA Baloyi, who's a music industry executive, who said the most horrific things we reported on last month in a conversation in which he said that white women were genetically inferior to black women. They can't bear children. He said that white people are genetically inferior because they have Neanderthal DNA. And he said that
Mr. Wyatt, if I was to go downstairs to the Pakistani shop and I was to go there and buy a flag that costs $1, 18 rands, $1, and then I went to another shop, the Muslim shop, and I bought a scarf, you see, and then I dressed up like an Arab and I put on a headband that says Palestine, Gaza, from the river to the sea, etc. Whose chant is that? Is that a chant for the Jews or the Palestinians? I don't really know. So I had all of this regalia and this signage about me, and then I lit this $1 flag on fire. Would you give me coverage? Would you say that, there you go, folks, this is the situation in South Africa, they really hate us? You wouldn't detect that I'm screwing around. You wouldn't be able to tell that I'm just playing you. You wouldn't be able to tell that I am disrespectful of your president because I have no regard for him. I read his book when he was just a businessman. I watched his shows. I was a huge fan of The Apprentice. And now that he's a president, I don't really have that regard for him. And so I'm just gonna disrespect and play like he's a puppet and make money on YouTube out of it. And I'm going to be doing that for 5 years while he's president. I'm going to be the guy who clowns Trump for money. If I became that caricature and I burnt a flag every single day, let's say I bought 500 of them and I burnt one every single day, would you give me consistent coverage?
And he said that white people need to be treated like dogs and trained like dogs to behave. The videos are out there. This is not my claim. This is horrible what this man said. And he's at it again. And what happened the first time? Well, the South African Human Rights Commission, under great pressure from South Africans, finally intervened after ignoring the situation for several days. And they said that they were investigating. Well, they said that they're hoping for a decision that leads to him making a public apology and some retraining about racial justice or relations between races. This is nonsense. The South African government destroyed the life of Vicky Momberg, a woman who was nearly carjacked and was in shock when she inappropriately and insultingly referred to a black police officer using the K word repeatedly. The woman was in shock, was never considered. She was convicted and sent to prison as a felon for the word she...
And by the way, I don't think that you're just spamming and playing into NOTA's hands or just grifting. No, I think that you actually do have a certain agenda. I think you're lobbying for certain people. You're being an activist for a particular side. You're in favor of a side. You are the illuminator of a certain people. You're the light bearer. But at the same time, can you not do your light bearing? Can you not shine a light on things that actually matter and ignore things that don't? Will you pay attention to everything? If I was to just make a call right now to say, hey, yo, young South Africans, listen, there is an opening that you can exploit on YouTube. You can become a caricature of an insane person. You don't really have to be insane. But while Trump is popular and he's talking things about South Africa, and there are journalists and people who've placed their eyes on us to watch us consistently, those are cameras. That's the spotlight. Those are lights. Start acting. Play around. Make some money. If I was to say, yo, go make a YouTube channel and be crazy during this time and trigger Colonel Chris Wyatt. Colonel Chris Wyatt, would you find yourself in a few months being a goalkeeper? Trying to stop, trying to highlight, trying to show, hey, you there, calling, hey, you're going to get overworked, don't you think? Hence I say shining a light on things that matter and things that don't. Do you believe NOTA really represents the threat that you are trying to imply there is? Is he the proof? Is he the smoking gun of the genocide? Are you really, really, really serious that this is the best evidence that you have?
Word she used. She didn't assault anyone. She didn't murder anybody. She didn't intimidate or threaten anybody. She simply reacted while under shock and went to prison for the words she said. Now, I submit to you that a society that legislates language is not a legitimate society. A government that is afraid of words is an illegitimate, cowardly government. However, with that in mind, that is the law of the land in South Africa. This gentleman is saying the most horrific things that harm the dignity of white South Africans, in fact, white people all over the world. And he suffered no consequences for it. This has happened well over a month ago, and we see no update from South Africa.
Oh, yes. And do these words actually hurt? Is he just spamming? Should people just understand that he's playing around and not take him seriously? No, I don't think so. I think the words are hurtful, but we have to be tough in this life. We have to be strong in this life. We have to ignore certain things in this life. And you have to condemn them even if they are jokes, Mr. Wyatt. I understand why you're here. And I'm trying to figure out why you are entertaining this. And I'm trying not to discount and dismiss your reasons. I'm trying not to trivialize what you're doing and say you're not serious, you're playing. I'm trying to tick all the boxes and say, no, you are running a campaign. You are monetizing. So you're spamming a certain system. You can exploit NOTA as long as he provides himself, and that'll be another $20 that shows up in your ad revenue, or $30. So you may just be addressing words that actually hurt. That is you, it's in your heart. Do I feel hurt by these words? No, I do not. I'm a black man. Are there things that are said to me that you can never feel or even have sympathy for? Of course. So I don't feel your pain. You don't feel mine. But I understand how these words can hurt you. And I would also advise you to to ignore it, to know the context of who NOTA is and what he's currently doing, and to make you aware that the world is going to grow into more of this kind of phenomenon. There's going to be more who spot this open hole and they will exploit it, and you will see some USA mockers get famous in South Africa over the next 5 years. So maybe be prepared.
African Rights Commission whatsoever. And you won't see it. So now he acts with impunity. And listen to what he says now about white folks. Listen to what he has to say now. He threatens to kill white people, and then he tries to back away from it. No, I didn't say this. Now, to his credit, the host of the program distances himself from this immediately, which is smart, because anyone that stands with those calling for violence against people, but especially against minorities, is a reprehensible human being. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
White people came here. They need to assimilate to our culture, not the other way around. It's bad enough we speak their language with a proficiency that they cannot even muster.
White people came here, they need to assimilate. Ostensibly, he means South Africa. That's the interview. Well, so did black people. Black people aren't indigenous to South Africa. The Khoi and San are indigenous to South Africa. And that's a loose term, indigenous. They weren't even there, a couple 100,000 years ago. Other hominids were. So if anybody's indigenous, it's Khoi and San, not the tribes who came down the Great Rift Valley about 1,600 years ago. You're not indigenous. You came there too. You didn't fully adopt the Khoi and San cultures, so maybe you're the interloper there, my friend. And besides, this dude looks an awful lot like he might be Khoi.
Mr. Wyatt, as you separate the Khoi from the rest of the African people who are on this continent, I'm wondering, do the native people of the Americas also get this divisive treatment where you say these ones are the original, these ones came a bit later? Why do you do that to Africans? Why do you say the Khoi are the originals? All of you are also settlers. You are saying that the rest of the black people who are not Khoi came and settled here like the whites, and probably even arrived here after the whites. I've heard this to be a racist narrative adopted by extreme right-wingers who claim to have been here first, to have placed that flag. You'll know, colonialists think like that. They'll say, we placed the flag, we wrote the date in a book, we have a receipt right here. And then the African will say, yo, man, don't tell me about a border of a country called South Africa and tell me that I'm from further up north, etc. I'm an African. If black people were migrating from where the Garden of Eden was, and they were moving to where they settled, they still moved along the same lands, on the same continent. You can't equate them to people who took a ship, people who went through storms and seas, people of a color that is meant for a different region of the world. And then you say those people have a right more than the black South African tribes. If there's anyone who has a better claim than the white people who arrived here first, that would be the Khoi. What is this gold, silver, and bronze medal that you're trying to give us?
Himself. Look at the freckles. I wonder how much European DNA he's got in his body there. Interesting to note. Look at that light skin color. Dude looks like he might just be part European. The very group he's rubbishing. Yeah, and, wow. The insulting comments that he speaks English better than white people do. Well, Afrikaners is not their first language, so maybe he's got a point there. But English-speaking South Africans, he speaks it better. What a condescending asshat this guy is. Let's listen a little bit more what he's got to say.
They still need to assimilate to our culture. They need to assimilate to Ubuntu. That's the only way in which we can coexist within this environment. Otherwise, we will slaughter all of them, drive them to the sea, literally.
They need to assimilate. They need to adopt Ubuntu. Otherwise, he will murder them. He will drive them to the sea. Seriously? This guy just called for violence against white people? Murdering them?
Did he just actually do that? Would a competent, sober judge sitting there arrive at the same interpretation? Is this where you are now gaming the system? Is your audience listening to what he's saying or listening to what you are saying? And somebody in my reaction to Ronaldo's video said that NOTA is actually echoing the words of an American president who also spoke like this. The comment will be on your screen right now. I'm not justifying what he's saying. I'm just saying, is he saying what you are saying he's saying?
Now, it's not hyperbole. It's a message. It's a clear message to others to act.
It's not hyperbole. It's a clear message to act. So have I received the clear message to act? Am I acting currently? Who is acting right now? Will you have the news of those who have reacted to his call at the end of the day? Or will you not?
What else can you take it? A reasonable, cogent person could only take from this man hates white people and that he's calling for them to be killed. Now, this is different than Julius Malema singing Kill the Boer song, which he can at least claim as a struggle song.
What if he's playing? What if the intention is to get you to react?
And a heritage thing from the struggle against apartheid, which is all horseman or, but he can claim that at least, and the courts have ruled that's the case, shockingly. But what is this guy defending? How can he possibly support what he's saying here? Wow, if you don't become black, you'll be murdered, is what he's saying.
NOTA is not the sort of authority who'd be able to mobilize people to stand. He's talking to millennials and he's talking to Gen Zs. That's his market. It's kids who have internet access. It's kids who have learned the English language, who enjoy listening to him, who find his vocabulary interesting, who want to consume more of it, who want to speak like him and act like him. That is a segment of the middle class kids. The rest of the kids don't know who he is. Those are off the internet. They don't have access, or they're in the rural areas. They don't know who he is. They do not see him as an authority. They don't follow him enough to have a respect for his word that would allow them to stand up and move and go somewhere. It's not like a child in South Africa will come across a video of NOTA seated on a couch with a nice, pleasant American dude with blue eyes and listening to people talking, and he says, "This is a definitive call to rise." Nobody is gonna do that. That's why I'm trying to place all of this into right thinking and right perspective.
And then watch the coward back away from it and try to cover himself because he realized what he just stepped into. He realized he just stepped in the crap that could lead to a prosecution. So let's see what he's got to say from here.
It might not be me. It might not be me calling for it.
I'm not a part of that thing. I'm just allowing him to talk.
It might not be me. You see the coward backing away? This scrawny little runt who has a bit.
And by the way, these are Julius Malema's words. So NOTA might be stepping on Julius Malema's exact footprints so that if anything is said to him, he'll say, but Julius has said exact same thing. He said, we're not calling for white people to be slaughtered as yet.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we've not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future. I especially think if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now. There will be an unled revolution. An unled revolution is the highest form of anarchy.
And so NOTA is repurposing those utterances and giving them life again. They were controversial the first time, they'll be controversial the second time.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give you a guarantee of the future.
If it's a joke that was funny in front of one crowd, just go perform it to another crowd and they'll crack up the same at the exact same moment. That's what comedians on tour do. The same joke, the same act. Money, money, money. Collect, collect, collect.
Mouth and makes racist threats against people, but he's not man enough to step up and defend his threats. No one should threaten anyone else. It's a criminal act. But the host says, hey, it's not me. I'm just letting him talk. Smart move, brother. Don't be associated with this nonsense because this conduct is reprehensible.
In fact, if white people are being driven to the sea, I'm least likely to be in the front lines driving them to the sea.
Well, on that point, we do agree, Nota. If white people are being driven to the sea and murdered by black South Africans, ostensibly, that's the argument you're making, you won't be at the front of the line.
Right? Because of my disposition.
What is your disposition?
As in, I'm a privileged black person in this country.
So why would you want to drive white people to see if you're just as privileged as they are?
Gotta love the host. That's brilliant. Why would you want to drive white people to see if you're privileged? You're rich. Yeah, it's unbelievable. The host is spot on. What a stupid comment from this guy. But hey, stupid is as stupid does. Life's like a box of chocolates, right? Stupid people should wear signs. That way you wouldn't ask them questions. And the host, well, you've definitely got the controversial guy on here. I bet this gets millions of views on his program.
You want to drive white people to see if you're just as privileged as they are.
The majority of black people, right, have been oppressed by white people and the white system.
The majority of black people have been oppressed by the white system. What white system is that? Are you talking about the apartheid system, the National Party? Most South Africans weren't even alive during apartheid. Most South Africans were born after apartheid. They've only known one governance party, and it's been the African National Congress, except for briefly in some municipalities and in the Western Cape for an extended period of time. The rest of the country has been under complete dominance of the ANC since 1994. A majority black government. A constitution promulgated and implemented by a majority black government. If there's oppression, they're being oppressed by the African National Congress, not by whites. How are whites oppressing? They don't control the levers of power. They don't have the sole authority for the use of force. They do not run the courts. They do not run the government. They do not run the military. It's run by majority black South Africans. And this dingbat doorknob is saying that majority of blacks have been oppressed by whites. That's factually a lie. Folks, the purpose for doing this video is to show you what South Africans have to put up with. This gentleman will suffer no consequences. Vicky Marburg was put in prison as
the oppression by the monopolization of South Africa's economy, the exclusion, the fact that big capital acts to crush competition. They don't sit around and watch you attempt. Once they formed a very serious moat, once they have money, once they have the technology, once they have the distribution modes, they have the stores, they've got brick and mortar infrastructure. There's difficulty to compete, and in your country, you would not accept if Haitians and Hispanics were owning the economy. We can see that currently minorities in your country are committing crimes, of course, but they are not owning anything in large amounts. They are not taking up real estate, buying it, making the properties nearby expensive for the white people to live. No, the oppression that he speaks about is the systematic one that apartheid made. Apartheid was intended to have lasting consequences despite the system itself, the laws being eradicated. The system would continue. The Group Areas Act is not here. Are people still living in the patterns they live in the Group Areas Act? Yes, very much so. Have some black people managed to move into the suburbs? Yes, they have. At great sacrifices and exertion of strength to be able to do that. But did the whites living in these suburbs have to work so hard? Did they have to beat generational poverty? No, they were lifted and made stable by apartheid. And that, despite apartheid being abolished, they still remain where they were. So your American people would not know what you're saying, but here, listen.
Convicted felon, her liberty taken from her because she used a slur against a black police officer after nearly being carjacked and murdered. And she was in shock. This guy's not in shock. He's sitting down comfortably, spewing his racial hatred, threatening the death of white people because of his lies and his distorted worldview. This is a dangerous precedent to allow people like this to spew racial hatred like this. Now, in America, we would just ignore some idiot like this. We don't have restrictions against speech, although he could be charged with inciting violence because that's a very tenuous line where what he said there here in the U.S. In a state, he could be charged with inciting violence. But if you want to be an idiot and say racist things, that's your prerogative. We simply don't associate with morons. We ostracize them. We don't invite them to community events, and people don't associate with them. But in South Africa, it's a crime. Where's the outrage? Where's the bench warrant for his arrest? There's nothing happening in South Africa. Whites are not in any danger. Really.
If at any point they decide that they want to drive people to the sea, I will not discourage them.
So he says he's going to kill white people. Then he says, well, no, not me. Not me. It'll be other people. I'm not going to be a friend of that. But then he'll do nothing to protect white people. Well, what kind of human being are you? I spent my life defending white, brown, black people all over the world, saving lives, white, brown, and black. Why would you not intervene to protect people whose lives are in jeopardy? What kind of scumbag are you? Apparently of the highest order. Well, there you have it, folks. NOTA Baloyi, once again, running off at the mouth, suffering no consequences for his actions. The arrogance, the cheek. This is what South Africans are dealing with. This is just one example of someone who's actually well-known, a public celebrity. And this is what he gets away with. So when Cyril Ramaphosa tells the world that Donald Trump is mistaken, that there's nothing wrong.
A public celebrity. Are you saying he's...
We don't even have to talk about the 140 plus race-based laws in South Africa or the exclusion from employment or education. You simply need to look no further than this sort of nonsense. What say you, South Africa? And for the race baiters and the race haters that can come in here and post their garbage, footsack. An objective, cogent, lucid person would look at this and say, this person is acting the fool and is saying dangerous things that endanger people's lives. That's the bottom line. Cogent, lucid people will look at this and go, this is wrong. Someone needs to talk to this gentleman and stop this. But it won't happen. Cheers.
Peace out. I'll see you next time. Beware of campaigners. Beware of grifters. Beware of clickbaiters. Beware of actors. Beware of opportunists. Beware of propagandists. Beware of spinners. Beware of the war for your mind. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.